Judges would disappear because AI would engage in what judges do because judicial decision-making is precedence-based. So we were clear this would happen. As it turns out, we're wrong. We still have judges. Our imagination was judges would now have time for the deeper questions facing the world. We unfortunately did not have the emerging issue of the dramatic attack on the judicial independence going on throughout the Western world. We could see AI and robotics, we could not see the limitation of independence and the breakdown of democratic structures. Now, many people would say, I remember my father told me, he said, why are you focused on the rights of robots? We barely have human rights. And I said, the debate is not the eventuality of legal categories. Debate is all rights are fought. Human rights are not given. We're in a fragile world system. Every effort of futures to create better futures where these new rights, the rights of humans, rights of nature, rights of technology grow. So as I started to imagine this, well, what would it look like? We got the 2020 wrong, so let me be wrong about 2050 as well. And we start to think, what would it look like as robots start to look more and more like us? We can see this gradual evolutionary development. This is what might occur. Of course it might go in different directions, but I fully expect this, knowing fully well what I just said we were dramatically wrong 40 years ago. We also, as emerging issues, look at the new grid. We've been running workshops in Africa, Asia, Australia. What would a solar localized integrated grid look like with AI peer-to-peer? Essentially making energy free. In Australia already, in my last workshop with the National Energy Commission, they said 2 hours a day we have free energy now because we've integrated the solar grid. The other 22 hours you still have to pay, but it's moving towards oversupply. In futures, we also start to look at spiritual issues. So we start to look at what would a Buddha thought look like. You wake up in the morning, you feel anxious, the Buddha hologram emerges and says, meditate a bit more. What are you anxious about? Why are you focused on fear? And of course, we're lucky we have Carla Thompson, and me and her were working on a Buddha bot. She's an AI developer, so this might come out sooner than you think. So emerging issues is what might happen. Clearly with AI, we start to imagine the end of teachers. When I do this work with teachers around the world, they all say the same thing. This is great. I love this. I can stop doing idiotic banality of repetitive tasks and do what I love, which is coaching, mentoring, critical thinking to make a difference. Every teacher says, I want AI in my room straight away. But then I go to some countries, and I won't mention which ones, and they say, no, we must ban it. Don't use it. I think that horse is run. It's out the gate already. So we can start to imagine a world where there's teaching, learning anytime from anywhere. That becomes the emerging issue. Will that occur by 2020, 2030? I know Flora Chan, our presence here, would want that, but I know the Ministry of Education won't let you. So we understand regulatory frameworks through law are at least 30 years behind tech and even behind culture. So what do we do there? Well, we start to imagine. We start to experiment. We prototype. We try and try again. What would it look like if students had full access to global knowledge, holograms of any professor they want? The Dubai Future Forum said, very cool. They said, you have 3 hours, invite who you want, create a new global certification of foresight, 20 universities, 20 providers, create a Star Alliance where everyone can share back and forth. Stop education being located and controlled and owned by particular nations, particular institutions, create a flow. So let's see if we can do that. I hope many of you will join me there. Those of you who know this is how things could emerge. As I said earlier, narrative precedes this with its fragility or another story. So for me, always culture meets strategy for breakfast. So we've looked at the rise of tech, regulatory impediments to its implementation, but always its culture. So I asked ChatGPT 3 years ago, I think it was the second published piece with AI, who are you? It said, well, I am like a library, perhaps a global brain, even the guiding mind. What are you? I am based on you seeing. And then, of course, the things we all know, machine learning. So I started to understand, what is the worldview with this technology we approach, it approaches us? It's the same for the rights of robots. We started working on that and it went in different ways. Here is AI the driver, or should AI be the passenger? Or my colleague Dexter from OECD said, that's interesting, you're claiming agency, but AI is the infrastructure. You've taken the wrong pill. And this starts the meta conversation, our ability to create when structures may overwhelm us. Clearly, those of us who do critical theory know very well algorithms of oppression. They create patterns of sexism, which Ivana will talk on video later. They give us images we may not want. So much of the features of AI is deconstruction, then we can reconstruct. Microsoft changed its story by going from know-it-alls to all learners. And the world is complex adapted, it changed again, and now it's implicated in genocide. It doesn't stop. We create and then we recreate, and the future keeps on changing. So AI for me amplifies. What are our core values? If our core values is this, the son above the male, man over nature, the nuclear family, then we'll get more of it. Or is AI this? Future generations, honoring the past, humans with nature, humans with spiritual consciousness. We'll get more of that. Those are some of the choices we make, and of course, they make us. AI in the LinkedIn world is here's a free AI toolkit, right? Use these tools. Those of us who say the history of technology know very well. We use AI, that AI uses us. And this is the unpredictability of it. I'm hoping it's going to be symbiotic, as Levon tried to hint at. We're all nurturing, co-designing together. But again, we can be very wrong, but that wrongness does not imply it's bad. Back to that piece we wrote in 1981, The Legal Rights of Robots. It didn't occur. That work led to 32 American states developing judicial foresight commissions. It led to this whole wave of changing judiciaries in the US. Richard Magnus, the subordinate justice in Singapore courts, heard about it. He flew and said, aha, let's bring futures to Singapore in the early 1990s. And I remember presenting to all the judges in Singapore in 2001, CLA, what's the narrative of judicial decision-making? So we don't quite know the patterns that emerged. Just a few months ago, we looked at the Crime and Corruption Commission in Australia, and they said, okay, can AI create green futures? What we're hearing is, we know for sure we will create green crime. And so they said, what's the one thing we can add? We will create a green crime corruption index. When AI creates corruption and crime, we're going to be the first agency that's going to monitor, that's going to regulate, because the one thing we can predict is that. That piece on the rights of robots, eventually Interpol read it. They said, why are we behind organized crime? And that led to the new Foresight Center by Anita Hazelwood in Singapore about 7 years ago. So we think it's going to lead here, but it doesn't. It leads somewhere else. So thus, futures, as you know, is not linear trajectories. It's complex, it's adaptive, and we just keep on learning. In the 1980s, everyone was an expert on development. In the 1990s, everyone was an expert on globalization. 6 years ago, all of us were experts on COVID. Now everyone's an expert on AI. And of course, again, I think we'll all be wrong, and that wrongness creates the learning journey. Now let's go macro. You know, one of my favorite historians is Nikolai Kardashev, and he says the critical part is the tension between technology and governance. As governance is focused on nation states, and technology is exponential, planets break down, and thus there's no contact by aliens on Earth. We have no evidence of contact with other planets around the cosmos. They discover tech, they discover uranium,
they create nuclear weapons, climate change, and the planet breaks down. Our goal is the opposite. In my imagination, one person, one vote, one planet with a global integrated solar grid, which AI does the mixing and matching to ensure the grid is stable, robust, and transformative. This helps us in Kardashev's work move from a type 0 civilization where we blow ourselves up and Sarah O'Connor dies to a type 1, type 2, and eventually a type 3 civilization where we evolve with humans, nature, tech, and of course, most importantly, spirituality. So thus we need external changes. AI will amplify the world. What world do you wish to create? Clearly humanism. Clearly end the UN Security Council system. Clearly a new Magna Carta. The Renaissance, the Magna Carta were pivotal events in European history. We have to redo those events for a very different world, including a global wealth gap. The new UN should not be the 5 billionaires around the world. When I ask groups, what should the new UN look like? They go, let Musk and Gates run it. I'd rather not. I prefer 8 billion people to make the mistakes than 5 people to make the mistakes. So AI will likely amplify the world we create. What world do we wish to create? How do we identify the changes? So the conclusion is evolution's edge. Far more adaptable, complex, transform, evolved civilization, or we go towards fragmentation. We're seeing the seeds of fragmentation in most countries now, in terms of the polarization of politics. We want a new integration. That's hopefully what I think Futures is about. Who does that integration? I did my PhD on the philosopher P.R. Sarkar, and his view was most people want to be like sheep. He said, instead, be the evolutionary exception. We know in evolution, the outlier, the exception, the mutation creates the future. Remembering Jose Ramos's mutant futures, I hope all of you become mutants. Now let me ask my own twin. I said, well, what is the future of AI? Thanks to Carla. Let's see what he said. Since we don't know, he might know better. And of course, it's not working, as we know it shouldn't work. That's one thing we can foresee with ease. Technology will, and it won't work, even if you practice day and night and make sure it's there. The conclusion then is again, technology will make our systems more fragile, be robust and adaptive, and now he has it. So,
challenges can AI move from?
I think let's stop that. I don't think we do that. Let's just skip it. So I think when we asked the AI twin, he came back with the same answer. That yes, the university is unstable. It's going to change. I know Dr. Flores says, I said that 20 years ago. I was wrong then. I'll be wrong again. We have a long discussion here. So in some cases, you might say it won't change. Notion of the university is a place for idea generation certainly won't change. But the structure, who is the student, how we arrange knowledge, and what that knowledge is for, the argument I hope I've made and convinced you will dramatically change.